Hey guys, welcome to another episode of The Aspiring Entrepreneur. I'm your host Hamza Chowdhury, and in this video I'd like to talk to you about not paying creditors. And it's the holiday season. We're wrapping up 2020, and a lot of people are out there, they're spending probably beyond their means to a certain point. A lot of times, this year with COVID and people losing their jobs, a lot of people are struggling financially. And if you can imagine that, you might have collected some debt this year that you're unable to pay, you might have lost a job, you might have lost a loved one, and you're in a situation financially where you're not able to pay some of your debt off. And you may have these sort of collection agencies calling you constantly, and you're wondering, what to do, and you're stressed out, you're not sure. And so this is something that's dear to my heart. I'm on this channel. We do talk a lot about, stocks and investing and entrepreneurial stuff. And one of the things that I wanted to do was, considering what's happened this year, is talk about collection agencies themselves and how you should never pay a creditor. So in the next few minutes here, I'd like to just share with you some information that might be helpful to you. If you do find the video useful, you can just show your support by subscribing to the channel and hitting the like button. And let's get started. So one of the things I like to do before we really kind of jump into it is kind of give you an idea of sort of a similarities of paying creditors. And you'll see a lot of the sort of business model of creditors similar to not paying your property taxes on your home. So for example, I live in San Jose, California, and I live in a county called Santa Clara County. And so every year, if you're a property owner, you pay what we call property taxes. Okay. And those property taxes don't go to your lender. They don't go to anybody except really the county that you live in. And they're there to pay for the services that the county provides. And so if you don't pay your property taxes, you probably have seen a default in property taxes. And if you don't pay that, you actually get a lien on your property in the defaulted amount of what the tax is worth. So for example, if your property taxes are $5,000 a year and you don't pay that $5,000, what they do is the county then takes your lien and they actually sell it on the courthouse steps to the highest bidder. So the highest bidder is really going to be buying your debt. And a lot of the times, a lot of these companies, there's actually portfolio managers who buy your property tax and several other property taxes in bulk. And the reason why I know this is I've attended real estate seminars. I've actually bought in tax liens in the past. And the way they work is essentially you can, as the investor, for example, if that person didn't pay the $5,000, you can pay that on their behalf. And if you live in a state like California, if the property owner eventually does not pay that property tax with a certain amount of fixed interest, which could be anywhere between 15, 18, up to 20+% per year, then all of a sudden you may actually be able to take the deed of the home. So imagine let's just say a $500,000 home with $5,000 property taxes that is defaulted, and you as an investor come in and pay that defaulted property tax, but the original owner doesn't pay you back in a certain amount of time. California is actually a state where you can actually get the deed of the home. So you can actually own the home for as little as that $5,000 that you had paid, right? So obviously in most cases, lenders aren't going to want to lose a property for $5,000. So they may step in and pay you, the investor, but guess what you're going to get? You're going to get that $5,000 plus the interest earned. So it's a good sort of strategy for investing. And again, we can do a completely different video. In this video, I'd like to talk about really essentially credit card debt. And so one of the things that I wanted to talk about is paying creditors is similar to paying a tax lien. So the only difference is these creditors don't have real interest. So they have nothing tangible. So for example, when you sign up for a credit card, you were most likely the guarantor for that credit card. And if you've defaulted on paying the credit card, the company could likely come after you for your assets. They could take you to civil court where they could claim the value of the debt that you owe. And then they could essentially win a judgment. And if they win a judgment, there's several things they can do after that. Just because you have a judgment doesn't mean anything, right? You have to actually do something after that. So they can take that judgment, they can garnish your wages, right? And they can do other things to find a way to collect that judgment. So this video is not about these folks. We're here to talk about the creditors and essentially the creditors who have charged off your account. So again, I'm all about responsible spending. I'm all about, making sure you don't spend beyond your means, that you understand the sort of risk involved with spending more than what you actually have, even essentially paying, credit card interest, which of course is extremely high. And we'll talk a little bit about why it's that high a little bit later in this video. So really, I'm really want to focus on, try not to get yourself in this mess, right? And if you are in this mess, again, everybody hits rock bottom. Everybody goes through these issues, and we want to support each other. We want to help each other. We want to understand the sort of business behind all of this and how we can essentially rebuild ourselves, because it's been a tough year for many people. Okay, so basically, when creditors and banks have lent you money and you essentially don't pay them back, essentially after 6 months, they write this thing off. And so when we say write this off, or they call it a charge off, they essentially take it off their books. So it's no longer as money that's owed to them. It's essentially written off as a loss, and it goes to, it's get written off as their taxes and etc. And so kind of a side story here, when I had a client that didn't pay their bill, and so they owed me a bunch of money and they didn't pay, I actually used a collections agency. I called them and I said, hey, this is the person, this is the debt. And literally, that's all they do. They just know the name, they know the amount, and they just bug the crap out of you. They call you day, they call you night, they call you from several different numbers, and you probably know that. If you're going through this, you probably know what I'm talking about, right? They're constantly calling you. And what's nice in this day and age, at least with, with Google and all these, is you have these screeners. You can obviously screen the call before you even pick it up. And a lot of times, of course, they'll hang it up, or if they do answer, you can always, report it and tell them to remove you off the call list. But in short, it didn't work. Okay, they called, the person didn't pick up, and what did I have to end up doing? Right, I had to end up hiring an attorney and going to court. And what happened as soon as I did that? We settled. Okay, so we didn't settle through collections. We settled because I, as the original creditor, essentially had to settle in court with the settlement, and we didn't even have to go to court. We were able to settle through the legal means before court. And so that is in short what collection agencies are there. They're really just there to annoy the crap out of you, okay, in hopes that you'll give them money so that they'll leave you alone. And so if you've already gone through this, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And so when they work, the reason why I mentioned the tax liens is they're like similar to portfolio managers. Okay, so they're going out to U.S. Bank, Citibank, Amex, you name it, and they're there and they're buying basically a big portfolio of defaulted charge-offs. So if you and several thousands of others have been charged off, they get your name, they get your account number, and they get your amount, and they essentially buy this for pennies on the dollar. And so what their business model is that they buy thousands of these defaulted accounts that have already been charged off, and they essentially say, we'll buy them for pennies on the dollar and we'll flip them for dollars. Okay, so I bought, let's say, $300 of defaulted debt for maybe 30 bucks, and I'm hoping I can flip it for maybe 100 to 200 bucks. Okay, so the original bank which you gave the money to, usually for about 6 months from the time you missed the payment, usually has that window to try to get their money back, right? So they're going to try and try and try, and eventually they're going to charge it off. So you may realize that, hey, I'm no longer dealing with X bank, I'm dealing with so-and-so ABC collection agency. Okay, so you may ask yourself then, why does a credit card company lend in the first place? Why would they give money if they know that people are going to default? Okay, and so there's a reason why their interest rates are so high. Okay, their business model is basically to give you as much money as they feel that you can responsibly pay back. In addition, they themselves have to protect themselves in case of a default. Okay, so the interest rates are higher because they know that people are going to default, but they themselves have insurance. Okay, so insurance is there that they pay for people who default, because if everyone defaulted, they'd go out of business, right? So they have their own policies internally as a company that protect them for when people default, that they can protect themselves and get that money back. And of course, like we talked about, the charge off, right, which is a write-off and it's a loss, so it goes against their income. Okay, so if you've already spoken to a creditor, it's too late. Okay, so if you've admitted your name, you've admitted the debt to the collections agency, then it's essentially too late. And there's a reason why they start off the call by telling you it's recorded. Okay, they want you to admit your name, they want you to admit the debt, and then they got you. And so I apologize if you weren't aware of that and you see this video after the fact. But if you've answered a collections agency call, you've admitted the debt, you've admitted who you are as a person, then you essentially have given them, the ammo that they need to go after you for that debt. And so a lot of times when they have that tape, they can use it against you. However, if you've received calls from a creditor and you haven't actually picked up, then you'll be just fine. So keep in mind that the reason why it works the way it works is you have no contractual duties or responsibilities with the collections agency. Okay, so since you don't have an agreement, who says you owe the debt in the first place, right? Who says you owe the debt in the first place? Acknowledge it. You don't know who this collections agency is. You don't know who this person is. Just some random person that's in the business of annoying the crap out of you and getting your money, right? Bothering you, harassing you. That's what a lot of them do. They're very aggressive. They scare you. They frighten you, right? They use scare tactics. They're not good people. And so consider it a random person calling you, asking you for money. What would you do if right now somebody randomly called, hey, so-and-so, Joe Smith, give me some money? What would you do? Probably ignore the call, hang up, block them, spam, right? So that's what a collection agency simply is, just spam. And so pay attention to the statute of limitations to your state. Okay, so go to your state and understand what are the statute of limitations, 3 years, 5 years. If this debt is 10 years old, then chances are the statute of limitations says, hey, this debt's old. You don't need to pay it. It's already past due. It's already gone. Like you would have had to acknowledge it. However, if you have a collections agency that sent you a letter and you've acknowledged the debt, right? And they usually have in writing if it's old debt, when it was, and if you've acknowledged it, now you've reset that statute of limitations. Okay, so the idea is that you can only have the debt on your name for a certain amount of time, and then if it doesn't get paid, then it's no longer valid. Okay, so there's no benefit to paying a creditor. That's probably one of the last things I wanted to talk about, is that a lot of times people think, well, this collections agency is calling me, I need to pay them, and if I don't pay them, then I am going to have a negative credit score, or I'm going to have something bad on my credit report. Guys, there is not a single benefit to paying a collections agency. The report, it already shows, and you can look at it yourself, that the original debt has been charged off. It is no longer on your credit report. This agency, whether you pay them in full, half, a quarter, an eighth, or nothing, it won't even show up on your credit report or your credit score. So why would you pay all this money to a collections agency to make them rich, to help their business model, and it's not going to do one single benefit to you, right? So just to emphasize, if you pay a creditor, you will not see a single improvement in your credit score or credit report. Okay, guys, so again, I wanted to make this video for quite some time. I really hope that a lot of you guys are definitely spending responsibly, but at the same time, we all go through tough times. We all go through rough patches in our life, and I wanted to make this video to hopefully find some way, if you're struggling, if there's sort of a bottom that you've hit in life where you face these sort of issues and you have these collections agencies calling you, annoying the crap out of you, just to know kind of your rights, just to know that someone's there and there's something that you can do. Okay, so again, research the statute of limitations, understand if it's old debt or new debt, and if it is new debt, as long as you haven't spoken directly, to the collections agency and admitted the debt and admitted who you are, then there's nothing to worry about. Okay, guys, well, with that said, I hope you're doing well. Happy holidays again, and best of luck as always. Take care. Bye-bye.